personal trainer, Elite. Yeah, it's good to have you on this latest episode of the Masters Corner. Now, just to point out, obviously this podcast isn't just for bodybuilding, because that's not the only thing I've competed in and the only thing within my skill set within fitness, which is why I got Cara on, because Cara has also not only trains bodybuilding, but also has competed and is a specialist in many other facets of fitness. So thank you for coming on board. Just a bit of background. Can you tell us how long you've been training for, firstly?
Yeah, so I was a dancer, and with that, obviously you train, you do fitness, and I stopped doing dancing full time when I was 16, and that's when my fitness really took a turn. And then I did my PT qualification and started that. Initially, the PT qualification was just for my own knowledge, because I was so interested in how the body worked. And yeah, I've done that part time alongside full time work ever since, really.
So when was that you became qualified PT?
So I did one qualification when I was 20, and then I did my last one in 2020 during COVID.
Right. We've known each other a long time, Cara.
Yes, we have.
Was it 20? Was it? I believe it was 2013.
It was.
March
Yeah.
2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's not.
Shows you how quickly life goes.
It was under good circumstances, but let's not re go over everything, right? So, what aspects of fitness, apart from dancing, what aspects of fitness have you kind of trained in and trained others in?
So when I did my PT qualification, I also did my prenatal, postnatal qualification, just because I had a lot of friends that had babies and maybe suffered from postnatal depression. So I had a real interest in that. Having a diagnosis of PMDD myself, which is a hormone imbalance the week before your cycle starts. Again, I wanted to train as much because I see the difference in women when they're training depending on the cycle. So that was something really interesting to me. I've also done a little bit of boxing training. I teach Boxercise. So yeah, I've tried to dip into various parts of the fitness industry to keep it quite varied and to keep my knowledge quite wide.
You had a white collar charity boxing match that I went to, actually.
Yes. I said that was my last one that I'd ever do. And I keep thinking, should I do another one? But yeah, that was the toughest training that I've ever put myself through, I would say.
Yeah, you won that, didn't you?
I did, yes.
Yeah, I remember that well. And apparently, so you was a novice going into that, but the girl who you thought wasn't a novice, and you beat her anyway.
Yeah, so she was actually a trained boxer and a boxing instructor. And that morning on Facebook posted, like, I can't believe this opponent I've got, watch me beat her. So then it was even more satisfying when I beat her.
Yeah, you've obviously got a knack for it.
Yeah.
And aside from that, you're also well versed. If you personal train at different places, but one of your main bases is Crayford weights, isn't it?
Yeah, so I've got two bases that are Crayford weights and then complex gym in Darrenf as well.
Okay, so you're very well versed in bodybuilding. So you touched on a point earlier, and that's another reason I wanted to speak to you on here about the different cycles within a woman's period. And I think you posted something on Instagram where it's good to approach each phase of that cycle differently. That's not something I've heard anyone speak about before. Could you sort of spread a bit of insight
Yeah,
into
and
that?
again, this isn't to talk negatively about any other coaches or PTs, but I think it's vital if you're going to train women to understand that, even if you're training bodybuilding women, normal women, lifestyle women, whatever it is, because they will have dips in their weight, their hormones, their ability to lift. So very early on in my career, I stopped tracking weights. The reason being for that exact reason. So the phase before your period is the weakest phase. So it's a bit of a wives' tale that people on their period will be weaker. It's not. It's the week before. Therefore, I will train my clients very differently, and I will also train differently. So during that week, I'll do a lot of Pilates, a lot of walking, a lot of steps, as opposed to let's go and get my PB, fail, I'm hormonal, I'm going to feel rubbish, I'm not going to want to train. So that's why I trained in it, and that's why I train my clients very different. And the key question I always ask is understanding their cycle. So every single woman I train, I'll know when they're due on, I know their cycle, their understanding, if they're going through pre-menopause. All these things are vital to understanding in the fitness industry. But I don't think people talk about it like you said, and I don't think enough coaches are trained in it, and they're pushing women to limits, which could be dangerous to a degree, but even for their mental health can be very dangerous. So yeah, I think it's definitely not spoken about enough.
Very, very, very much so. And that's something I can only, as a man, I can only sort of inquire about and empathize with, because it's not something that I've ever had to deal with and ever will. So, for those who aren't aware, could you give sort of a brief overview of the cycles and how you would approach each cycle? Is that possible?
Yeah, of course. So the phase, I'll use simple terms because the language gets a bit
Yeah,
complicated.
yeah,
But
yeah.
when a woman's ovulating, their hormones will be at the strongest, and that is when they will be strong. So you'll see a lot of women hitting their PBs. You'll see them really excited to get into the gym. If you're coaching them, that is their week. That is their peak week, if you like. Their luteal phase, so the phase before their period, they're going to be very weak, they're going to be fatigued, they're going to be hormonal, they're going to be craving sugar. That is not the time to try and be pushing them to their max. That is the time to, okay, if you can go for a walk, that's a massive win. If you can do reformer or swimming, so you have to switch it up. During their period, people react differently because you've got the physical side of pains, maybe fatigue, headache. However, hormonal wise, they should be at a point where they can train strong if they feel like it. But I would say that is a key point, that women need to push themselves in the gym, because I go into the gym and I think this is the last thing I want to do. And then as I finish my workout, it's probably the best workout I've had because you're coming over those hormonal things and challenges during that week. So I think in terms of like HiiT training, if people want to do that, again, the phase during your ovulation is going to be where you're going to be really strong, have more energy. The week before your period, don't even try and do it because you're just going to be frustrated. If women do have anything like PMDD, that's going to have a massive, massive impact. Some women can't even leave their house during that week. And I think women need to be less harsh on themselves. So obviously, if you're competing, you're competing. You can't have a week off. But other than that, if it's lifestyle and if it's for the rest of your life, women need to be a little bit easier on themselves, because I hear people getting frustrated that they can't go to the gym. The world's not ending if you can't go to the gym. You need to look after yourself more than anything.
Yes, that's at the end of the day for me. This is my own personal opinion. I think competing is great. It's obviously a good thing to do if that's what the person wants to do. But ultimately, lifestyle is the most important because it's the most sustainable. It's the biggest window of your life.
Absolutely.
Pretty much. We can all die at different times, but generally speaking, the lifestyle is going to dictate the quality of life you have rather than that window of competition that you have. So I think what you're saying is about sustainability with the bigger picture. What are some of the symptoms of PMDD?
So PMDD, every woman's slightly different, and I've joined lots of forums to kind of understand it because I've got my own views and my opinion. First of all, it's probably the biggest undiagnosed thing in women at the moment. So a lot of women are pushing for those diagnoses because, again, doctors will say, oh, it's just your hormones, and send you away. So just some advice for anyone that thinks they might be suffering from PMDD is to keep a diary so that you're going told with that to the doctors. But women can feel suicidal, they can feel fatigued. A lot of relationships break down during PMDD because women, I don't like this term, but they tend to self-sabotage because they feel so poorly in themselves that they push everyone away. I know people that are PTs that can't PT during that time because when you PT, and you'll know this, Sean, it's a little bit like therapy as well. Your client will come to you and it's not just about the session, it's about their week and it's about their partners and it's about their difficulties. But if you're not managing your own head, that then becomes really challenging. And I must admit, even in my own career, I train people during PMDD and they would never know, but you almost have to act during that week. It becomes any social events become really draining. My training is just awful. My food is awful. But without a diagnosis, you literally feel like you're going mad. And I don't know how better to explain it. But even during that time, you can tell yourself this is just PMDD, it's just for a week. But because your hormones are so imbalanced and so extreme, everyday life just feels really tough. So yeah, I think women, no offense, Sean, but women do have it really, really tough in terms of their cycles and their periods and training. And there's a lot of pressure on feeling a certain way or looking a certain way. And I think social media doesn't help with
It
that,
doesn't.
because yeah, a woman in PMDD will be looking at other women's bodies and we've spoken about this again, Sean. I think everyone that trains has a form of body dysmorphia as well. Like if you're big, you want to be bigger. If you're small, you want to be smaller. And there's that can make it challenging when you're feeling quite hormonal as well.
It's very, 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 very interesting. Very interesting. Um, did you do a High Rocks event?
I got blindsided into this event. Yeah, it was similar. So we did 120 kettlebell swings, 120 burpees, 12 minutes on a bike, 12 minutes on a ski erg, 12 minutes sprinting, 12-minute lunges. It was, yeah, very, very intense. But that was at Ministry of Sound, but they're doing another one in June. So yeah, I'm going to train properly for that and do it again.
So for those that don't know, is it basically is it like HiiT training circuits?
Yeah, but with little rest. It's basically a competition. So they had you're with a partner, so it's either woman, man, or woman, and then they had different league tables. But I kind of went in and was like, oh, it sounds like a nice day out. It was not a nice day out, but yeah, it was an experience for sure.
Excellent. What's your typical training split in the sense of, do you primarily do weights, functional fitness, HiiT training? Do you mix it up, or do you sort of say to yourself, okay, as long as I'm strong and functional, I don't really mind what I do generally?
It's hard. So obviously I've had coaches, as a lot of PTs have. During that coaching, I will just stick to whatever the coach tells me. I have scoliosis like yourself, and I have ankylosing spondylitis, which is a form of arthritis in your spine. So to be honest, my training depends on weather and hormones and stuff like that, because there'd be some days that I find it hard to get out of bed with the ankylosing spondylitis. So my training will be very set around that. But one thing that I just keep telling everyone is to do reformer Pilates, because that has changed everything. It's changed my flexibility, my mobility, my coordination, my body shapes changed massively. And it is quite therapeutic. So I've implemented that 2 or 3 times a week. In terms of other days, I do Blaze at David Lloyd, which is boxing, running, and strength training. So I do that once or twice a week.
Yeah.
And then other than that, I mainly strength training, I would say. I don't do tons and tons of cardio. I try and get my steps in. Stairmaster if I want to put myself through torture. So yeah, I just listen to my body, to be honest. And yes, I have goals, but it's like we spoke to it earlier. I want to be training until I'm 60, 65. So I don't need to hit all those goals now. For me, it's about keeping everyday health and keeping as healthy as I can.
Yeah, exactly. I think, um, again, for me, lifestyle is the most important thing. I'm not knocking anyone who thinks competition is the be all and end all, but ultimately, I started competing later on in life, but it's what was going on years before that set me up now, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
it was just going to the gym, the martial arts and stuff like that for fun, really.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think you've nailed it. Having a good mix of um, strength, flexibility, and stamina is the bigger picture.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to women in terms of the best way of training with I want to say this respectfully. Okay, let me not say it first. Is PMDD a form of, is it a mental health condition, or is it just called a cognitive?
There's a bit of a debate around that, because I wouldn't say that I've got a mental health condition, because that is something that is present all the time or might only go away with medication, and it's a chemical imbalance, where this is for a small period of time throughout the month.
Right.
So
Okay.
I think there is probably a little bit of debate around it at the moment. So I don't know the official answer, but it's so early on with being recognised that I think you'd probably have to say it is, because people can feel suicidal, but it's not something that's present 4 weeks of the year, 4 weeks of the month, sorry. You're talking about 12 weeks of the year. So it then makes it a bit different whether it is a mental health condition or not. But I think the support is very similar. Women can go on antidepressants, they can have therapy for it. There's a lot of self-help groups as well now that women are starting, which is really positive.
You've kind of answered what I was going to ask you before in terms of different ways to manage it. You've kind of answered that already.
Yeah.
So what plans do you have of sort of any more competitions, or is it just about lifestyle and maintenance at the moment? Because I know there's many things that you could do if you wanted to, many things.
I think for me, I don't know whether I have a form of ADHD, but definitely being a Leo, we're very, very competitive. So it depends if someone presents something to me. So if someone was to say, I bet you couldn't do this, or why wouldn't you, then I would be on it. But other than that, I'm happy with everyday lifestyle. But yeah, I've got Ministry of Sound games coming up, and I've kind of set in my head what I want to do in terms of my improvements from last time and getting up that league board a little bit. Boxing, never say never, but yeah, I'm just at the moment it's just about lifestyle and keeping active and consistent.
Good stuff. And also, yeah, another point I wanted to touch on as well. You've come from the old school era of just face to face. You've also done online PT and online coaching. So, what would you say is? Do you have a preference, or is there no preference
For myself or for clients?
for yourself as the coach?
For myself, I think for me, I know everything. So there's no, sorry, I don't know everything. I
Excuse
know
me.
how to. What I meant by that is I'm not a new person that's in the gym. So I don't need someone to walk me around the gym and show me equipment, etc., which a lot of people do if they're new to the gym. So for me, online coaching is just that accountability. I need someone each week to hold me accountable for all my decisions, my eating, my sleep throughout that week. So for me, online coaching is the best form. I don't think I'm at a point where I need that kind of PT to push me in the gym. I just need that weekly accountability. However, for my clients, I have stopped doing online coaching because I think the clientele that I want to reach out to, they do need PTs. They need that. I do a lot of online PTs just purely for distance. I have clients that live far away, but again, I can see their form, I can watch them. So it's very different. I don't know what's happening on online client day to day other than when I check in with them. So for me personally, online coaching, but for my clients, I think PT face to face or online.
Excellent, excellent. Um, I bet you couldn't. I bet you couldn't do a wellness competition.
Do you know, so many people ask me since I started in the gym, like, would I ever consider it? I have at one point, but I don't. Again, I think anyone that does it, I take my hats off to them. I think the dedication and what you put your bodies through, what you put your brains through, your mentally is amazing. But especially with someone who suffers from PMDD, that is just going to absolutely sky high all of my hormones, how I feel about myself. I know a lot of women that have lost their periods for significant periods of time. So for me, it's a no, but I take my hat off to anyone that does it. I think it's amazing, but definitely won't be one of my goals.
Yeah. You'd probably end up in a cell
Yeah.
if you did that. It's about, and that's the thing. It's about knowing yourself. Knowing yourself and what's for you and what isn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. But Cara,
I think that last point I was going to make, I think for me, I need that short-term adrenaline. So if you said to me, you've got something to do in 3 weeks' time, I'll go and do it. Say to me, I need to train for something for 6 months, 9 months, 12 months. There's no way I'm going to do it. And I think you have to have that mindset for bodybuilding. It's not just go and train for 3 weeks and then step on stage. I think that's a big difference as well.
exactly, and also in terms of that's another point actually. in terms of social media through a woman's lens, do you think it's more about what's on someone's feed based on the algorithm, or do you think generally it it has impacted women of your generation negatively in terms of the whole body image stuff? For the woman's lens, I know from a man's lens what it's like for us, but I can't speak on women.
I think it's a bit of a catch-22 because I'll pick up a lot of clients through social media and through posting online. However, I think it is very detrimental. I follow those people that kind of catch people out that are editing their videos and things like that. And I think women or kids and girls are looking at that and thinking that's what they need to look like. Obviously, we live in a world where a lot of women have surgery and things like that. So I think social media can be a really good blessing. It can be a good forum for sharing information, from connecting, but it can also be that doom scrolling of why don't I look like this, and I'm never going to look like this, and I might as well just give up now. So I think social media is a massive catch-22, to be honest. And me, myself, I'll take breaks from it every so often because you can become consumed even when you don't want to in what other people are doing, how they're living their lives. But I think the biggest thing to remember is people just put out the good bits. And that's what women need to remember. So, yeah.
Good stuff, Clara. Good stuff. So I think you touched on some good points here, and it is an absolute pleasure having you on. I know you're at work as well, and I've got a lot of running around to do today, and I'm baking, as you can probably see as well.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you coming on, Cara. We'll speak soon. All right.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks.
Thank you very much.